afternoon to all of you. And I thank Professor Dan, the organizers, for making this a possibility to share my thoughts on this wonderful project of relearning to be human. So happy, and I bring the best wishes from India, along with Professor Seema here, already spoke so beautifully. And I also want to thank the other presidents. They have made the mood really good and a good vibrancy of this aspect of the culture and the border cultures there. I'm sure you heard about all the explanations. The previous speakers who presented themselves with what is border, what is border elements, and understandings and all that. I will not be dealing with that because it will be a repetition, I'm sure. So I'll just go with a very gist of my particular presentation. What is the presentation I'd like to make? I'd like to make this culture of encounter. And what do I mean by this? In the aspect of border cultures or cultural borders, it is always referred to or looked at as a contestation, a kind of a problematic area. The moment we say border, we always consider it a problematic area. But I would like to focus this as a positive element. Border culture or cultural borders as avenues for becoming human, becoming better human. So this is what my whole gist is about. So let me start like this, just presenting the aspect of the situation that we are in. I think the basic, just one second. The other slide. Is there one more? Okay. We have to go back. Just click it out. Come on. Okay, second one. No, that should come fourth. Just push it out. Push it to the fourth. Yes. Okay. Yes. No, that's second one. Next one. And so that. Go back. Yeah. Next one. Next one. Okay, can you bring that? Third one is last. Third one last. Push it out. Yes. Okay. Yes. Next one. Yes. The aspect of the real element or what do we find now with regard to situation now? That's what I want to just find out. Okay, we find here this is the contemporary world. Sorry, this is contemporary world situation that we are in, where there are so many cultures, there are so many varieties, and we can say multicultural or multicultural. We have here. These are the elements that we are facing in the world. We find that globalization has been so fast and so quick that somehow it has unfolded very many unexpected conclusions and unexpected phenomenon which I think the world is still taking as a challenge. What are those challenges? Because of globalization, you see here the increased amount of poverty. It has never made everything equal. It has not made even ground. It has made more elements of poverty. And that is why we think this, because of poverty, there is so much of migration. People are not able to live in their own land. They are not able to be happy in their own land. They want to look for greener pastures or better avenues. So they would like to move to other places. So migration is taking place. And that is why we have this immigration problem. We have a lot of immigration from all over the world. And that in that particular context, we can talk about the policies of Western world and Europe or America, where we have open border policy, closed border policy. So we have here, because of this consequence of globalization and poverty. And then that also leads to unnecessary elements of ethnic differences and therefore ethnic conflicts and ethnic wars. And that also leads to migration. Millions of people are being killed or being just done away with, and they're not feeling safe. They have to move again. So there is so much of what we call after consequence of globalization. It's very, and you can add to that also ecological destruction. And it's worse still in some parts of the world, it's depletion. Completely no respect for ecological concerns or ecological growth. That is not even considered as a being. That is very sad. Therefore, we have these problems in the world which has to do a lot with our own aspect of life here on earth, human life. And so the question arises, if these are the problems, the basic question again, who am I? Or what do I mean by existence? Or put it more succinctly, you have to say, who is a human being? What is the meaning of human life? These questions come because of these problems. So when we talk about culture, we are talking about human being, and that's we are relearning to be human. So we ask ourselves, what does it mean to be a human being? What is the meaning of human life? In this situation, I'd like to just show the way in which we look at our own understanding of culture and meaning of all that we go through. You know what, in a course on anthropology which I take for the students there in India, at the end of the course, the conclusion I say, to be human is to become human. It's a constant change, constant growth. And I always say, to be and to become is a gift and a task. It's a gift because you're a human being, you're already human beings. The Almighty God has given us human life, and therefore it's a gift. At the same time, it's a task. We have constantly endeavor to be a good human being, or human beings who are open, understanding. Therefore, it's a gift and a task. In that case of becoming human, or what we say here, relearning to be human, so becoming human, I put this as kind of, as Kanika would put this, kind of eternity. There is temporality and eternity. What is this? Being and becoming. So I put this, it's a movement of permanent temporality. That is, permanent as being and temporality of becoming. Or sounds better when we can say temporarily permanent task. It is a kind of a real challenge that is set before us to make us understand that what we are doing here is an interplay of human elements. So in order to become human and in order to enhance our cultural elements, our dimensions, we have to understand the interplay of human elements. And in the interplay, what do we find again? It's not everything is smooth, everything's fine, everything's perfect, or everything is moving towards an end, proper end. It is not. We all have our teleology, but that purpose and vision is not taking place when there is an interplay of human minds. So what happens, as what Professor Joes mentions here, when we have this interplay, we look at the other as an enemy to be subdued. Sometimes that kind of thing, consciousness, something is there. Someone is the other, is not part of me. So sometimes we shun or overcome or destroy. So what happens in that case? We contribute to culture of death. So you find here very clearly, we move to a culture of death, where we find the other as an object, other as something to be discarded, other as something to be eliminated, my enemy. Then we also find in some other place where we can look at a people, the other, and just be indifferent, ignore the other. And even that leads to isolation of the other. In that case, I think what we are doing here is, we are getting to the culture of seclusion. So we're getting culture of seclusion. We feel at home with that. He's not part of me, she is not part of me, and I am okay, you're okay, I have boundary, you have my boundary, the borders are clear. Seclusion. And then we have another type of interplay, when we approach the other, only considering what we may appropriate or take or gain from the other. In that case, it becomes the culture of exploitation. So we have understanding of these elements, interplay of human elements, we have these type of culture of death, culture of seclusion, culture of exploitation. And therefore, what do we understand by these elements? How do we overcome these challenges in order that we may understand the borders, and in order the cultural borders are not infringing upon one another, the cultural borders, border cultures are not a threat or not a danger zone, but it becomes a learning zone, it becomes an open avenue for better growth for human beings. How do we do that? How do we do that? You know that in one of our, in my native language, my mother tongue, it's called Tamil, which is one of the oldest languages in the world. It has a history of literature for nearly 2000 and year more. We have literature, and there is one particular old sage by name Kanyan Pungudana who said like this: Yarum Ude, Yavarum Kedu. He said this meaning is, even that particular time he was able to see the universality of human beings. And therefore he was able to say, every place is my place, every people is my people. That is called border crossing, as Fred Dalmyer would say, the author whom I did my research on. Fred Dalmyer would say that you don't limit your space to your space, you don't look at your people as only an exclusion, but rather inclusion. So it becomes a border. I have a border, yes, I am within a border, but that border crosses over the other, border crossing, and that includes. So this particular phrase, Yarum Ure, Yavarum Keval, it means every place is my place, every people is my people. If only we had no borders, if only we had no countries and all this visa problem and all this. Okay, we can go no problem anywhere. That kind of vision was there much earlier. I'm talking about so many centuries before. Now that border crossing, how does it come? How does that person get an idea like that? I belong to a place, I belong to a culture, and yet I'm able to look beyond the culture and place. So the time and space and all that binds me does not hold me. All that does not hold me. That does not hold me. So what I think personally feel here is that border crossing is an effective way of understanding the cultural borders or border cultures in order that we may grow better human beings. So what is the suggestion? So my suggestion is already there in the title itself as a kind of and culture of encounter. So my suggestion is a culture of encounter. What is encounter? Encounter is involvement in the other as subject to subject, as a person to person. I do not consider the other, neither the human being or any other being, as an object. I consider every being as a subject, and therefore there is an encounter. Remember Martin Buber was able to say I thou, that's because subject to subject. Martin Buber was able to say clearly because only when you have subject to subject, person to person, I thou is possible. So in cultural borders, or overcoming cultural borders, you need to have this openness which is called the culture of encounter. And this culture of encounter overcomes the culture of death, culture of seclusion, culture of exploitation. That is why this particular element of encounter is such an openness that we need to have not only towards human beings, to every other living being, towards ecology too, the environment too. So it means for us at this moment, in order that we learn to be human and we include ourselves into the other, we need to have this culture of encounter. What does it mean, this culture of encounter? The cultural borders always defines cultural borders. But then cultural border crossing, it not only defines us, it defines us together. When cultural border can define me, cultural crossing or a culture of encounter can include everyone else, so it makes me a person who sees every other as part of me. And that is why we have here this culture of encounter as something that we discover what is good and holy in others. Something good. Let's put this simple as something good. Every person is endowed with goodness. Every person. Whether learned or unlearned, whether rich or poor, whether talented or not talented, every person is endowed with goodness. So That's one of the first things about openness or the culture of encounters. So going towards the goodwill and acknowledging them, rejoicing with them, that type of attitude. Where there will always be a joy and gratitude. So a culture of encounter will lead to openness in such a way that there is always good in the other, and there will always lead to joy and gratitude. And then the culture of encounter will also lead to an active involvement, active participation, by fostering an interplay, that which is both conducive and acceptable. So I do not force myself, this is how it should be done. Rather, I open myself to the reality of all that is happening and all that is thought of us. And then this culture of encounter is also an encounter which makes me learn from the other. So I am not here to be only teach, I am not here only to say, but I am here to also to learn. So mutual learning is also possible in the culture of encounter. And finally, we also have in this culture of encounter a dialogue. Dialogue. That's what Panika would always say, dialogues. So it is an encounter. Dialogue is encounter. And this dialogue is not coming with preconceived conclusions, no. In dialogue we come with openness, so I'm able to understand what does it mean to have this encounter. And if you really think so, we recently in India we have a series of Supreme Court verdicts. One was the same-sex, okay, it's no more offense. Homosexuality is no more is an offense. It's not a civil crime anymore, and especially among adults, consenting adults. And second one was even illicit relationship outside the marriage is nothing. It's not exactly criminal. It can lead to divorce, but it's not criminal. And third one was a very famous shrine in South India named Sabarimala, very famous shrine for Hindus, and that they allowed women to enter. Women not allowed to enter for cultural reasons, for physical reasons. From the age of 10 to 50, women cannot enter. That has been this tradition, and Supreme Court has said no, there is equality, and therefore women also can enter the temple. These three series of very important landmark judgments made everyone fight, not accept the verdict. For example, if you say homosexuality is accepted, all Christian people or Muslims or especially the traditional and the clergy will say, no, that's not correct. This cannot be applied in India. So you see, therefore, where there is a kind of a contestation problem, because you are entering into a cultural element. Religion is culture. Marriage is culture. Social culture. And therefore, the Supreme Court, that is legislature, is entering into something which is human. And therefore, do they have a morality? Do the legislature have the real ability to dictate the morality of people? And therefore, real argument is going on even now, a lot of problems. But what I mean here is, when a culture is being affected, people will stand up and rise. Like it happened also last January in my place, where I work in place. We have a very interesting bullfight. Not really bullfight. It's a kind of taming the bull and to show the prowess of the male. And it was always a tradition in our culture earlier. The kings and the lords used to give the girl, the daughter, only to the boy or the man who tames the bull. This is a tradition. Who tames the bull alone, single. And that's how it is done. It's called Jallikattu. And now they banned it. The Supreme Court banned it because PETA, the people fighting for the rights of animals, they fought and banned it. But the people rose against the cultural element. They rose against this. No, it's our tradition, it's our culture. And in our beach, where there's Chennai, there's a big beach, second longest beach in the world, called Marina Beach. There were nearly 1 million people gathered to protest against the Supreme Court verdict. Sorry, the court verdict and the government verdict. And the government reversed the rule. The Supreme Court gave in and said it's allowed. It's cultural element, you can go ahead. So you see that cultural aspects is something which makes us realize more and more the value of different traditions, different aspects. So it's an openness, what I want to say. Cultural encounter is an openness. So dear friends, today I would like to present here as a means of as a means of cultural borders and border cultures to overcome this is border crossing, and that is the culture of encounter. And if this culture of encounter is open, and then I think we can make headway. And by doing that, we enhance ourselves as better human beings of universal nature, of universalism. And I wish and pray that this is one that which somewhere some kind of step will be initiated because of our real great effort of CRVP, RVP here, and also so this would be somewhere we can make a note, somewhere we can people turn, somewhere some legislatures or some politicians should turn and say something has been done with regard to relearning to be human. So to be human is becoming human, and that's possible because of culture of encounter. Thank you.
Thank you very much for I think what is really the message came from an Indian perspective, because India is rather a continent, and the complexity of the Indian culture is so big that I think is the only possible message also for the rest of the world. No? So the culture of encountering the other should be the message from India, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So try to have an Indian flavor, and came from the very India, from Jaipur, from north. You are in south.
Yeah, I'm south. Yeah.
So we'll try to see how people are thinking in the north, no? North of India.
Hello, Dan.
Hello.
Where's the Dan?
Hello.
Hello.
Speaker.
Hello.
No.
Hello. Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.